Hello, everyone. Welcome back to In the Yard Podcast with your hosts, Colin Savala and Braden Cox, as we record here on Monday, August 20th, 2024. End of August, the dog days of the MLB season are kind of getting behind us, and we're quickly approaching September, Braden. I feel like the season just has flown by, in my opinion. I feel like the season kind of started a couple weeks ago, but next thing you know, we only have about a little over a month to go. So Braden and I are gonna, give you guys a rundown. We're gonna start off with Bobby Witt Jr., Aaron Judge for AL MVP. Then we're gonna smoothly transition into kind of like the Brewers, where they stand with Yelich going down. Same thing with the D-backs. They have a lot of injuries as well. Then we're going to end with a little playoff push, playoff race predictions here. So stay tuned. For our takes here on In the Yard, Braden, I can't believe it's almost September. It's August 20th, so not quite September. But like I said before, the season just seems to be flying by. Maybe it's because the Yankees are good again. Maybe that has something to do with it as well. But yeah, how you feeling about the season overall?
I'm feeling okay. There's some things that I would like to see my New York Yankees do a little bit differently, but we could have a whole episode on that. But yeah, the season totally is flown by. I think we got like roughly 30 to 35 games left. I don't know if by you or if you stepped outside today at all, but it was a little chilly
It was a
for
little
for a
chilly.
date for August. I stepped outside, I was walking to work and I was like, whoa. It's like, what's going on here? It feels like I should be tuning into some wild card baseball tonight, but we
Yeah,
still got over a
that's
month
that's
left.
what
But
it feels like.
yeah,
Don't get
it's
too
going to be an
excited because the heat
exciting
wave's
push.
coming. Heat wave's coming next week, I think. So
Yeah, of course, it's just part of it. So, I mean, give it another month or so, we'll probably get this more consistently, and then it'll really feel like we're in the swing of things
yeah,
as far as playoff baseball and even some NFL and college football content, which I'm sure we'll be talking about as well.
yeah, for sure. All right, Brandon. Let's start off with the MVP race. I know
Yeah,
we have kind of two big dogs leading the AL MVP race, um, and that's Aaron Judge and Bobby Witt Jr. Um, but I know I see a lot of people making the case for. I feel like the favorite's definitely Aaron Judge. I'm not exactly sure who the favorite is, but I would assume it has to be Judge, right? Maybe I'm
yeah. I'm
biased,
looking it up now.
because I'm a
I
Yankees
looked
fan.
I looked a little bit earlier, and
Um,
Judge had a comfortable lead
right,
for MVP, but he also had a comfortable lead at the very beginning of the season.
true,
So
true. And then Bobby Witt Jr., who's been playing lights out ball past month or so. I mean, really all season, but this past month it seems like he's really gotten hot. And
especially the
kind of
summer, yeah, he's been
yeah, kind of single handedly carrying the Royals. I think they're a couple games back at the Central now. So we'll stay tuned for that as well. But I think this AL MVP race. I know Brandon, you were saying it's undisputedly Judge. I think it's going to be a little closer than you think. I do think Byward Jr. is going to get some votes, especially
oh yeah,
if the Royals do end up making the postseason, even maybe end up winning the Central, right? Because that's within reach now with the Guardians losing 3 games in a row this past weekend, and I think the Royals have won 5 in a row, if I'm not
yeah. They
mistaken.
they went into Cincinnati and
Yeah,
made light
rolled.
work.
They rolled your
Yeah,
Reds.
rolled. Probably the most dominant like road sweep I've seen in a long time. I think
Right.
they only gave up 3 runs and they scored like 20 something, 22, 23 total.
Yeah, it's
They went
insane.
off. So
Yeah. So Royals definitely making a statement this past weekend. But Brandon, one thing that really sticks out to me for the MVP race is the fact that Bobby Witt Jr. actually has a higher F4 Fangraphs WAR than Aaron Judge. Bobby Witt Jr. currently leads the league at 8.8, but Judge is second in the league. Not just AL, second in the league at 8.6 F4. I do think I do notice that Fangraphs loves a good shortstop, a good fielder, especially at the shortstop position. So I think that kind of inflates Bobby's, F4. I think that what puts him over the edge, because if you like the offensive
sure.
numbers, it's clearly Judge.
Yeah.
Without the base running, without the fielding, it's clearly Judge. But Bywood Jr. makes a case for himself because he's such a good fielder, and in fact, he does also have a one dot OPS, 1.013 OPS. That's third in the league, I think, behind Judge and Soto, and then 25 stolen bases and 91 RBI. So he's having just a hell of a season, and he's been stellar. I just think I just don't think we should overlook Bobby Witt Jr. in the AL MVP race just yet. But then you compare those numbers to Judge, 8.6 F4, like I said, but his offensive numbers, 1.166 OPS, 111 RBIs, and 6 stolen bases. So, has the better offensive numbers cumulative wise, and also like average, not average, OPS. Bobby Witt Jr. does have a higher average. And Judge only has that 6 stolen base and is a little bit not nearly as good as defender. Judge playing right center field as Bobby Witt Jr. At shortstop. So I just wanted to hear your thoughts. I know you said earlier that you think it's Aaron Judge easily, but just want to hear your thoughts as to why.
Yeah, I mean, something that you need to kind of take into account here is the two teams that these players play for, right? And this isn't like me dissing Kansas City by any means, but we're talking about the New York market versus the Kansas City market, right? That's going to play a factor here as well, right? There's going to be more like quote unquote prime time New York Yankee games where people can watch Aaron Judge on, Big Fox or Big whatever it may be, Big ESPN versus the Kansas City Royals, right? Um, Going back a few months ago, we were having this debate about Gunnar versus Bobby Witt, right? And I don't remember exactly where we both landed on that, right? But I was more so on like, give me Bobby Witt Jr. for the next 10 years, right? Because he had an incredible season last year. The Royals were just kind of last
Mm-hmm.
year. I think they had like the second or third worst record last year. And now all of a sudden they kind of figured it out offensively. Pretty much across the board, they've really figured it out. Um, but I mean, again, it could go either way, right? Like offensively, that's what people kind of love to see is like big home runs, big hits, and stuff like that. And you're going to get that with Judge. Bobby Witt is kind of doing the same thing in his own way, but they do play two different positions on the field, two completely different positions on the field. So maybe I shouldn't say that like it's like easily Judge, um, but it's kind of felt like it's been Judge all year in the AL, which is what's going to kind of stand out to me. Versus Bobby Witt has been in the top 5 all year, but it's been as of the past 2 months where Bobby Witt has kind of solidified himself in that second spot behind Judge. So again, I think it could go either way. And like I told you earlier, if Bobby continues to play the way he's played the past month, and let's say Judge goes into a little slump, like we're gonna have to have a real conversation about it,
Right.
right? Do you foresee that happening now? I don't. I don't know. You know what I mean? I think it would be a tall task to ask Bobby Witt to do what he did for the past 6 weeks through the rest of the regular season and potentially even into the playoffs. Right? I'm not saying he can't do it. I think it's just a tall task. So maybe I shouldn't say that it's like clearly Judge. But it feels like he's kind of been it all
Yeah.
year and he's still it. And Bobby Witt is to me a close second. That the Fox Sports, I don't know where they're grabbing this though, but the MVP odds have Bobby Witt at plus 600. I think honestly, maybe it's even a little bit closer with the way that he's played the past month. But yeah, I think it's clearly between those two. So it'll be exciting how they both finish the season.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. I do think the slight edge right now still has to go to Judge.
Yeah.
Like you said, he does have that favorable market, the New York market compared to the Kansas City Midwest market. Um, but like I said, I just think Bobby Witt Jr. is really making a case for himself. If Judge wasn't having as good of a season as he was, I
Exactly.
think Bobby Witt Jr. would clearly win MVP over anyone else.
Yeah.
But I think Judge has just been so incredible. We take it for granted sometimes, just like what his numbers are looking like and what he means to the Yankees.
Yeah.
I just think got to give the slight edge over Judge. But like you said, if Judge slumps a little bit, Bobby Witt Jr. keeps it up, I think might be a different discussion in a couple of weeks here.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the whole fact that we kind of overlook Bobby Witt Jr. is, again, going back to that New York versus Kansas City market, right? There's not as many opportunities for Bobby Witt Jr. to show what he's got on Big Fox or ESPN, whatever those prime time games that we're used to seeing. Um, Meanwhile, the Yankees are playing Sunday Night Baseball against the Detroit Tigers. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
it's one of those things. So it's definitely going to be an exciting
Yeah.
race.
And then I know a lot of people are saying, if you took Bobby Witt Jr. away from the Royals, how their season would be going, and if you took Judge away from the Yankees, how their season would be going. I think it'd be pretty similar. I think there'd be
I agree.
significant difference on both teams. If one were playing on the team, but I just still think got to give the Judge or the edge to Aaron Judge here.
Yeah. It feels like Judge has done it kind of all year
Yeah,
versus Bobby Witt
except for
has
that
been in
first
the
month.
mix.
Yeah,
That first month was a struggle, but for Bobby Witt, maybe he wasn't as favored early, right? But as of late, has really made that push. So
yeah.
I don't know. You
We'll
you could go either way on the argument. I
we'll
wouldn't be
we'll,
mad if
we'll
somebody
check
argued
back.
Bobby Witt over Judge. Yeah,
Yeah, we'll check back in on this in a couple weeks here, as we
sure.
approach into the season. All right. So I think that wraps it up for our Judge Witt debate. I'm
Yeah,
going with Judge. Might be a little biased of me to say. I definitely
I'll go
could see
Judge
the
too.
case for Bobby Witt Jr. though too. I
Yeah,
see the case
we'll
for
see.
both
We'll
sides, but
see.
for me, it's Judge.
Let's see how the Royals play the next month or so.
Right.
Even 2 weeks. If Bobby Witt keeps it up, then we're gonna have to have another conversation about it. But yeah.
Right. All right, Brandon. What I say we're going to get into next, was it the D-backs or the Brewers?
I think we can touch on the D backs just
All
like
right,
a
let's touch
little
on the
bit.
D-backs a little bit. All right. D-backs, as we know, they were kind of my World Series prediction at the beginning of the
Yeah.
season, um, or before the season started, rather. And then they kind of had a slow start to the year. Weren't playing, the D-backs like that we expected them to be. But these past 2 months now, I think, starting in like late June, early July, they really started to heat up, winning the games. I think they're only like 3 or 4 games back of the Dodgers. They did just get swept in Tropicana against the Rays. But yesterday we found out Ketel Marte is going on the 10-day IL, and just might be a little concerning for the D-backs, and especially stinks for Ketel Marte because he was kind of right there in the NL MVP race, right behind
Yeah.
Show. He's been having just a stellar year as well, batting 298, 370 on base, and a 560 slugging. And
Yeah.
he also does it all in the field too. So it kind of stinks for him and for the D-backs as well. So we're gonna get into it, like as to whether or not we think this will hinder the D-backs playoff push or playoff run, or if it's just kind of giving him a chance to just get some rest here, and just be ready for September and the postseason. So, Ray, what are your thoughts on Ketel Marte's injury and the state of the Diamondbacks as we currently speak
Yeah.
here?
I think the next, I want to see how this team plays without him, right? They're currently the second wild card team, right? They have a 3-game lead, I believe. Yeah, they have a 3-game lead on the third wild card team, the Atlanta Braves, right? They need to kind of stay afloat here, right? Their
Mm-hmm.
next few games, they've got some winnable games coming up. I mean, they beat the Marlins last night. Um, and then they've got Boston in at Fenway this weekend,
It'll be a
and then they
fun
go home, and
series.
then they got to play the Mets. So they got some tough series, right? But there
Right.
are, I would expect them to win a couple of like in those next 10 games or so. Like if you go 500 or 6-4, I think that would be great, right?
Mm-hmm.
Without Ketel Marte. If we're talking like, I don't know, like the way Boston, they can score a lot of runs on you, right? And the Mets are kind of a team that like, I don't know, you feel like that they could get hot or they could be cold, right? If you if you lose a lot of games here, like if you go 3-7, right, I would be very concerned, right? Because I think playoff race is going to tighten, especially like looking at the Mets, right? If you play the Mets and let's say you get swept or you lose 2 out of 3 or something like that, very quickly that lead you got is going to dwindle, right? And all it takes is a team like Atlanta to get hot. And the Mets, if you have a tough series with the Mets, like suddenly you could find yourself as the team on the outside looking in, versus that second wild card spot. So,
Yeah.
I mean, the way I look at it is like I feel like that they had last year, right? World Series team last year, and they really impressed. And now there is like an expectation this year, but
Right.
it feels like they're if they feel like a team that would be prepared for some adversity at this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are there question marks? Of course, right? And that's why I said, look, let's look at how they play the next 3-4 series, right? We don't know how long Marte is going to be out, but let's say he is out 2 weeks, right? Let me see how you play those 2 weeks. If you play 500 or better ball, I'd be like, we're going to be okay, right? But if it's any less than that, then like the alarms are going to be going off in the desert, right? I
Yeah.
would say. I would still pick them to make the playoffs because I think that they're better than the Mets, and I think right now they're playing better than the Braves, and the Braves have a lot of injuries. So I would still pick them to make the playoffs. But if they limp into the playoffs, that would worry me if they had to go into a series against, basically any one of those teams, especially if they had to go on a road. So we'll see. So the injury concerning, but let's see how they play without
Yeah.
Marte for the next 10 days, right? You got a couple tough series, but you feel like that, you know, you're a better team than the Mets. Boston, maybe, probably. We'll see.
Yeah. Right now I was gonna say, like, I think, you obviously don't want to have your MVP of your team, potentially NL MVP of the league,
Yeah.
right, go down with an injury this late in the season, right? But I just think this Diamondbacks roster is very, very deep. And
Yeah.
then I've been following them a little bit, and they've had a lot of guys step up recently. You have, Jake McCarthy, Scranton native.
Yeah.
He stepped up recently, just getting clutch hits, making plays in the field. Um, Corbin Carrion, who has definitely had a sophomore slump to say the least. He's been playing better as of late. I think
He had a
he's
good
been
he
getting
had a good
going.
series in Tampa.
Yeah. He had that big 2-run homer. I think they ended up
Yep.
losing anyway. They're down by two though. Hit the 2-run homer,
Yeah.
um, in like the ninth inning, but they ended up losing anyway. So he's getting hot. I just think can't count him out, even though he's had a not to par season for his standards, but he could get hot at any time. Um, and then even like guys like Jock Peterson and Adrian Del Castillo, who's filling in for Gavin Moreno at catcher, he's been having some good games here recently from the stats I've been seeing. Christian Walker is also down. So I just can't see. I know, those are some big injuries there with Walker, Moreno, and Ketel Marte, kind of top four, top three or top four players there. But I just think the roster is deep enough. They made some, they got Josh Bell. I think they got him at the deadline or off of waivers or something.
Yeah.
So their rosters is really deep. Um, and I just can't see them, even if they do, struggle a little bit when these next few weeks here. I don't think they will, but even if they do, I think, come September, all these guys are going to come back healthy and then get some momentum going into the postseason. So yeah, I'm not really concerned about where the D-backs stand, especially if they take care of business, like, against the series against the Marlins. Like, these are the games you have to win though, because especially with like the Red Sox and the Mets around the corner here. Um, but I don't think it's panic time. I think the D-backs will be just fine, and they'll be coming back healthy and even stronger come the postseason.
Yeah. And honestly, something I kind of mentioned is something that is really playing in their favor is that team that's 3 games behind them is the Atlanta Braves, and they're riddled with injuries.
Right.
Right. So, it's kind of like almost a level playing field at this point because you're dealing with injuries to your top like 3 players. Atlanta's got their own injuries, and so on and so forth. Like, so, you know, concerned? No. In 10 days, if they play bad this next 3 series, yeah, I would be concerned just because you don't want to limp into the playoffs again. They could get hot right before the playoffs again, too. So, like, it's a game of comers and goers, right? I wouldn't. They're gonna make the playoffs. I'll leave it at that. They're gonna make the playoffs. I
Right.
trust this roster to make the playoffs. But if they struggle going into the playoffs, I don't know if we'll see what we saw last year.
Yeah. I mean, like, I know the NL West they were like a couple of games behind the Dodgers a couple of days ago, and they
Yeah,
lost 3 in Tampa. And the
yeah,
Padres are also red hot, right? So I think the NL West is going to be tough, but kind of similar to last year. They could. I think all they have to do is make the playoffs. Um,
it's fair.
and then I think as it stands, I heard today, Brandon, as it stands, it'd be a Padres Diamondbacks wild card in
It
Peckham,
would be, which
which
would
would
be a
be electric,
fantastic.
right?
That would probably be. So I think, I mean, we'll get into it, but I think it would be, like you said, D-backs, Padres, and then it would be Twins Astros, which would be another fun series, a little rematch of
Yeah,
last year. I feel like those two teams always play each other well. And
right.
then there's obviously other series which we'll get into, but I think of the series I could think of at the top of my mind, I think that one would be the most enticing, not just because it's two NL West teams playing each other, but I just feel like it would be, you know, it would be a very, very like heavyweight battle between two teams, the Padres, who are loaded but have injuries of their own, as well as the D-backs with their own injuries. So
Yeah.
hopefully all these teams come back healthy mostly before the playoffs so we get to see them at full strength, but we'll see.
Yeah. Another note here, Brain. The Dodgers, Padres, and D-backs are all 7-3 in the last 10, so they're all hot. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I think the race is gonna be really fun coming into the season.
Yeah,
Diamondbacks only 4 games back, so we'll check back in on that. Um, but yeah, I think that about wraps it up for the
for sure.
D-backs debate. So
For
then I
sure.
think you said you wanted to go over your Brewers. I know you kind of been on the Brewers bandwagon, not
Yeah.
bandwagon, but you've been on kind of high on the Brewers for most
Yeah.
of the season now, especially after they kind of took control of the NL Central kind of pretty much right from the start of the season. So Brandon, let's get into them a little bit. I know kind of big injury with Christian Yelich
Yeah.
last. I think when did he go down? So I think he went down a few weeks ago.
He went in a few
And then
weeks ago, but they ruled him out for the
yeah,
year like
word him out for he's getting
last week.
surgery. Yeah, he's getting surgery or something. So he's out for the season. Does that concern you at all, Braden? For these Brewers, I know, like I said, you have high standards for them, and you said you think they can make some noise come playoff time.
Yeah, of course the injury worries me because he's kind of I hate to say the face of the franchise, but he kind of is at this point. You know, when everybody thinks Christian Yelich, they think of they think of a guy that's been with the Milwaukee Brewers for maybe not as long as we really think, but it's a recognizable face that we see every year. So obviously there is a concern, right?
Right.
And he's a guy who's always going to be in the All-Star voting race, maybe even the MVP race. Just for what it seems like a standout guy, right? So of course you want him available. Not going to be available. Sucks. Am I like overly concerned? Not really, because I feel like the expectations for the Brewers this or going into the season weren't like through the roof, and they're just kind of exceeding expectations. I was telling you earlier that they only have two fewer losses than the Los Angeles Dodgers, right? And one behind the Phillies. Like there's a legitimate chance that
Mm-hmm.
if those two teams fall in the slumps and the Brewers, who are hot as all be, I mean, they just swept the number one team in the AL this past weekend. If the Brewers get hot, there's a chance here where we could be talking about the playoffs running through Milwaukee, which I think would be the biggest shock of the year. I mean, obviously a team like the Royals would be a shock, and there's other teams, but I think if the Brewers were to just go out and win the NL, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I think it would be. I don't think it's impossible. I think it's actually like there's a decent shot that this could happen. Um, they're not a sexy team by all means, but they're just good. Like I
Yeah,
don't even know. Like there's
I
not
agree.
one thing I can really point at that is like really stellar. I just think top to bottom they're a really good team. I think their manager is going to win Manager of the Year. Right? If we're talking about NL Manager of the Year, it's Kansas City and Milwaukee.
In
Right?
his
Because I
first
think those
year,
two teams
in
in
his
his
first
first
year as
year.
manager, because Craig
Yeah,
Counsell's on the Cubs now.
yeah. It's been really impressive, and I think it's just maybe just the Milwaukee way. Like it just seems like every year they figure it out. Like we really kind of counted them out this year, right?
Right.
As like they're gonna fall off. Um, but they've done the complete opposite, and it looks like that they're even better
Yeah. Right.
than they've been in previous years. So
Yeah.
I don't really even have too much to say on them, right? Because I'm not a Milwaukee Brewers expert, right? But losing Christian Yelich, yeah, that sucks. But I mean, they swept Cleveland this weekend, right? Like that
Yeah.
says
That's a
something.
statement
You know what I
series. That's a
mean?
statement series, especially without
It's
Yelich too.
it for sure. It's a statement series, and like
Um.
I said, not by any means are they a sexy team. They're not the Dodgers.
No.
They're not the Yankees.
They don't have
They're
like
not
those
the Phillies.
stars. I mean, Yelich was kind of their star, but he's not like a star. Like if you go ask someone random on the street, they're not gonna really know who Christian Yelich is, right?
That's
Um,
fair.
but yeah, like you said, I think their roster is definitely deep enough. They're just a really good overall team. They play good defense. They make a lot of plays in the outfield. I think Bryce Terang and Sal Frelick are one of the best outfielders in the league.
Yep.
So they make a lot of plays, and they got Willie Adames, Willie Contreras. They're the Willie boys, so they've been balling out the season. Um, even like Jackson Churio, and he's kind of making a case for NL Rookie of the Year, maybe besides Skeens, right? But I just think like you said, they just have a great roster all around. And I think some guys are gonna have to step up if they want to make a little playoff run here, like Reese Hoskins. He's having an okay season, But I just think, like you said, they're just that deep, and I think they'll be okay even without Yelich. And they're going for the best record in the NL. They kind of want that first round bye, right? So,
Yeah.
um, so yeah, I think it's gonna be a fun race overall for the NL best record,
Yeah.
and I think the Brewers are here to make some noise, and we'll see come the postseason how they do.
Yeah. And the last point I'll leave you with the Brewers of pretty much of all the teams, I would say in baseball, yeah, like specifically, we'll talk the NL. They're the most comfortable team right now. They got
Oh
an
yeah,
11
for
game
sure.
lead on second place.
Yeah,
That
no,
race is
they're
over.
yeah they
Like
could
I
start
saw
resting their
today that
guys. Yeah, I
the
mean if they
Cubs
unless they
next
really
like
want to make a
18.
push for that best record in the NL, which maybe you can
Yeah,
can do, but
sure. For sure. Right.
yeah. Sorry,
But
go ahead.
my point being here is they're the most comfortable, right? I saw something today that the Cubs next like 18 games are against all teams that are below 500, right? But they're also below 500. And if you're going to count out a team like the Cubs or the Reds at this point, like it's over. Like the Brewers are going to
Mhm.
win this division. They're going to be hosting playoff games in October, right? Like they're at the point where they can really go for it at this point, right? Because even if you do lose a few games, it doesn't hurt you substantially because really like their floor right now is the 3 seed, their ceiling's the 1 seed. They're not going any below the 3 at this point. So, I like where they're at. Um, and like I said, all it takes is a team like Philadelphia or the Dodgers to have a rough spell, and all of a sudden, we could be talking 2 weeks left in the season. Like, can the Brewers win this conference? So we'll see what
Mhm.
happens.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head with that. And now also, I forgot what I was gonna say. Oh yeah, we were. I don't know if you were high beginning of the season on the Brewers. I certainly was
Not
not.
really.
I pictured them finishing like third, because we were kind of high on the Reds, right? We were both really high
Yeah,
on the Reds after their season, but I think the injury bug just caught up to them eventually to the Reds. But yeah, the Brewers have taken NL Central by the throat, and I think there's no way they're gonna lose it at this point.
yeah, yeah, 100%. So
All right, so did you want to do a
yeah,
little?
let's
We
do
got
it.
5 minutes left, so do you want to
Yeah,
do a little
let's do
playoff
let's do a quick
predictions?
little. Yeah, yeah.
What do you
So
want to do?
real
Just look at the
quick.
standings and kind of just go from there. What we think.
Yeah. So I
Maybe
got it.
maybe see if someone can make like a late playoff push or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. So I'll just well, I guess we'll start with we'll do the NL since we just talked about the Brewers. So we got the Phillies at 1 at 73 and 51, Dodgers 74 and 52. Then the Brewers 3, the Padres are the first wild card team, Arizona the 5th, the or the Braves are the 6th, and then a game and a half back is New York Mets, and then 3.5 back at the San Francisco Giants. I didn't really include any other teams because in my opinion no other teams really got a shot here. These are our 8 teams. 2 of them are getting left out. It's just a matter of who.
Yeah,
So right now the wild card would be Braves at Brewers and like we said, D-backs at Padres. What are you thinking here? Is this going to stand? Do we like where these teams are right now?
yeah.
What do we
It's
think?
just it's just so tough right now, Braden.
Yeah,
Um, I like you just said, it's basically the last three wild card spots. Um, are up for grabs between 4 or 5 teams, right? You got the Giants,
yeah,
the D-backs, Padres. I'm kind of counting out the Cardinals, counting out the
yeah.
Cubs,
That's why I didn't
and
even
then the
include them.
Braves and Mets are those other two. So I just think it's tough to tell right now. Braves, Austin Riley went down yesterday. Who knows how that's going to affect them?
Yep.
I've got the Mets who are just so inconsistent. Big win last night, right, with the walk off homer, but they've been inconsistent all year. So if I had to pick like one team out, it's also especially hard to try to pick the division winner and who is going to end up in the wild card because the NL West race is close. I think the Dodgers are
Sure.
going to hold on. Um, but like I said, I just think if I had to pick a team to be left out, I think it's definitely the Giants. I just don't think, I think they're only one game above 500. I don't know what the rest of their schedule is looking like. They do play the Cup. They do play the White Sox this week, so maybe they get a couple wins there. But I just think if I had to pick one team to be left out, I'm rolling with the Mets, Brain. I think I just don't think they have the consistency to make a playoff run here. I think at the end of the day, the Padres and Diamondbacks will just play better ball, and they're a little
Yeah.
deeper. So I'm going to roll with the Mets as the first team out of the playoffs this year.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree with you there. I think the 6 teams that are currently in are going to be the 6 teams that are in the playoff picture, right?
Yeah,
As far as seeding, that I'm not going to sit here and predict.
yeah, that's too
I would
early.
say probably
Maybe the
Phillies,
Mets could
Dodgers.
catch the Braves, but I think the Padres and D-backs are a lock. But if I had to say,
Yeah,
it's going to be the Braves in
that's
the
what
last in
I would agree
7 or 9.
100%. I would agree
Right,
100% with that. I think it comes down to the Mets or the Braves. So
right.
we'll see what happens there. So I'll hop to the AL real quick. Um, Yankees 1, Cleveland 2, Astros 3, Orioles 4, first wild card tied with the Yankees. Royals 5, Twins 6. So right now it'll be Twins at Astros and Royals at Orioles, which I think would both be fantastic series. Like I told you earlier, the Gunner Bobby wild card series. I feel like the MLB sees this right now. Is like we got to make this happen.
Right.
And then I have Boston as 4.5 back of the 6 Twins, and the Mariners 6.5 back, which I think it's kind of done for my Mariners. It was a nice little run there, but I think
I think they can
I
make
think
one
six and a
last
half is
push,
too much.
but yeah, yeah, it's true. I just think they're right behind the Astros. Not right behind, 5 games out of the Astros. It'll take a miracle, but it could happen. I just think the Astros are too good. They're 9-1 in the last 10.
Yeah,
So I think the Astros, like we said, can't count them out. We've been saying it all season. Don't count the Astros. Don't count the Astros. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, I
So
just think
do you think that the 6 teams that are currently in are the 6 teams that make it? Or do you think a
so
team like the Red Sox could come in
it's
and
tough.
spice things up? It's so
So
tough.
tough. So you got the Yankees, Orioles, Guardians,
Who are the
Royals, Twins,
locks? Who
Astros.
who are your locks for sure?
Well, I don't want to jinx it, Braden, but you have to go with the Yankees, right? Yankees,
Okay.
Orioles,
Okay.
Guards, Royals. Guards are a
Royals are a
lock.
lock?
I think. I think they are, Bray. I think they're 15 games
I
above 500. The Red Sox are only 6, and that plays a huge factor. Same thing with the Twins. So
yeah.
I think it's gonna. If I had to say right now, we're getting late in the season. I think the way the playoff picture is now, maybe not like seeding wise, but the 6 teams that are in are going to be the 6 teams that make it.
Okay. I would agree with that.
I
And
hope
that's
that's
just
the way it
because
is.
of
I think
us.
it'd be really fun that way too.
Yeah.
Um,
And
unless the
as
Red
far as
Sox go on a crazy run and then either Royals or Twins or Guardians have like a terrible last stretch here,
yeah.
I think it's going to stay the way it is.
Yeah, I agree. So we both kind of like the teams that are currently in. Maybe the Mets and Braves that could change. Boston sitting 4.5 back. I don't love that. If they were 1.5 back, I'd be a little bit more comfortable saying maybe Boston does it, but 4.5 might just be too much for teams that are playing decent ball right now.
Yeah. And that wraps it up here in the yard, Braden.